All right, looks like we have a steady amount of attendees. So thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to be presenting on this topic. Our presenter, Elizabeth Walker, will be going through the handbook, and then myself, I'm Sarah Rosero, and then our Education Outreach Program Manager, Tara Lucky, will both be facilitating this webinar. So please let us know if you have any technical questions. You can chat us in the chat. All right, so if none of you are familiar with what a conservation district is, we provide free technical assistance and financial assistance to land managers in Snohomish County and Camano Island. So some of the services and programs we offer are habitat restoration, farm planning. We really try to get out there into community to offer outreach events and best management practices that conserve our natural resources. We also have youth ed, and we also deal with green stormwater infrastructure. And you can go to our website at snohomishcd.org to find out more about some of the programs we have and services. So for questions today, we're asking that you use the Q&A tab right down here that's highlighted with a red circle. Otherwise, you can use chat to chat amongst yourselves. And then any technical questions, please message Tara or I. And so this webinar is being recorded. We will send out a link afterwards in a follow-up email. And then the handbooks will be mailed out in a couple of weeks. And we're really looking forward to getting those out to you all. I just wanted to acknowledge some of our partners, Washington State DNR, and then I'm also going to pass it over to Tara to take on the rest.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you all of you for attending today. So yes, the Department of Natural Resources is funding this webinar, as well as these upcoming field trips that we'll be doing that we're very excited about. We have them in different areas throughout the Puget Sound on consecutive Thursdays in May. So we will send out more information about that. And that is a really great way to see firsthand some very innovative green stormwater infrastructure that's happening in our city. So more to come on that. And then I have the pleasure of introducing Elizabeth Walker. She has a master's of forest resources from the University of Washington in urban horticulture, specializing in urban forestry. For 3 decades, she has consistently worked as a city forester and consultant for more than a dozen jurisdictions and agencies in the Pacific Northwest, including King Conservation District on the first phases of this project, and now with us in promoting the handbook that she will be talking about today, and then also the toolkit, which she will be talking about as well. So Elizabeth, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Let me go ahead and start this in the beginning. So good morning, everyone, and happy day before National Arbor Day, which is the last Friday of April. It's why we, part of the reason why we scheduled this for the end of April. So I'm really glad to be here and to take you on a little mini tour around the handbook that we are going to be able to provide hard copies for all participants. And so we thought it would be a good idea to just kind of give you the lay of the land so that you could see where and what would be useful for you in the future. So what I will do is start a little bit about the first phase of this whole particular project. It all started when I was working with Brandy Reed in the King Conservation District, where we had this desire to accurately quantify the value of tree canopy in mitigating stormwater in urban areas of Puget Sound. We really didn't think that there was enough out there for us to feel confident about that. So what we did is we were able to get some grant money, and we went ahead and did some analysis of 2 hydrology models and put together a comparison of it, which was really a quite revealing study, which I will go over the findings with you here. And so that was the start of this whole project, was that analysis and comparison. And then what we thought was important was to create a technical report in order to summarize and provide that data for all those people that really want to see that detail. And so that's what the technical report is all about. And then it was important for us, we thought, to provide a handbook that would give folks a better, not only the findings of the technical or the analysis, but also to give more information and more resources around how to integrate urban tree canopy into not only stormwater management, but many other city priorities. The cool thing is that we were able to have the digital copies of those two sources. They're actually here at this website that's housed on Better Ground. And so you see that you can get a technical report or the handbook that you could just download those from that particular site. So we're excited about that. So as we were saying, the funding partners for that first phase with the technical report, the analysis, technical report, and the handbook were both national and state and local. So I just continue to be grateful for the funding that was available to do those pieces. So to get into the handbook itself, we split it up into like 4 sections as to, the organization of the information. The first section is about multiple benefits that urban tree canopy provide. And that's really important for us to communicate the value of incorporating trees into city priorities, such as stormwater management. The second section is around summary and the findings of the technical report, which is really nice. It's summarized very well in there, and I will go over those key findings to give you a little bit more flavor about them. And then the third section is talking about the importance of collaboration and collaborating with stakeholders. And then there are a few case studies in there that we'll briefly go over, but also connect them to some local case studies or projects. And then the fourth section is all about the references, the cited literature that was used for the handbook itself, which is amazing, the amount of references are there, as well as more resources for folks to continue to explore these topics. So, as I said, this whole project started with really identifying the value of trees and tree canopy for water management or stormwater management. So it's no surprise, and here's one of the graphics that's in the handbook, which is nicely lays out and shows all the different ways that trees are playing a role in water management. So not only is it water, stormwater reduction, runoff, but also soil infiltration, erosion control, and even able to do some pollution, water pollution abatement through phytoremediation. So we are, highlighting those with that, but then there are all these other benefits that many of us urban foresters know and love to share with folks. And it runs the gamut of not only the air quality improvement, but we do see the ecological and environmental benefits that are through biodiversity and carbon sequestration. but also there's this human health and quality of life benefits. And so we know that there's a mitigation or tempering of the heat island effect in urban areas, but also there are real connections to improvement of livability and human health that are tied to green spaces and urban forests, as well as we are also seeing a correlation between equity within a community and the level of tree canopy that is exists in these underserved areas. So these are things that we really enjoy having the ability to share with folks, to realize that trees actually do way more than just stormwater management. So that's just a brief cover of the first section about the benefits. So I'm just wondering if people have any questions before we move on to the next section.
Thanks, Elizabeth. We don't have any questions at this time.
All right, well, we're just getting going, and maybe these other sections will inspire you to ask. So the second section, as I said, was about summarizing the case, or summarizing the study about the hydrology models. So what I wanted to just briefly show you or share with you is that here are the parameters or the inputs that we used in order to provide a really good analysis for our region. So we did have 4 pilot communities, Kirkland, Tacoma, Snohomish, and Kent. And so we made sure we had large, medium, and even more rural or suburban sites for comparison. We only limited this analysis to 2 of them. One is the Western Washington hydrology model, which is used a lot by the practitioners in our area. And we compared it with iTree Hydro, which is one of the iTree tools within their suite, which is, it is a open source toolkit, or a tool ability to tools that you're able to do not only assessment of tree canopy for a variety of variables, but also can do some mapping with of tree canopy. So we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to see how those compare to each other. We worked on 4 spatial scales, the city as a whole, a drainage basin within a city, down to a neighborhood, and then on a site level. We wanted to see how well these models worked. And then I wanted to share that we also had some variables to see how well these models compared, such as the loss of a tree canopy within an area, a change of the canopy and land cover, which would include increase of impervious surface. That's often related to development. And then what happens when you do increase tree canopy within these different scales. So I'll share 5 findings that we thought are really important for folks to know. One is that the scenarios where the tree canopy is replaced with a variety of land cover, both vegetative or impervious, they result in an increase in a runoff volume. So what we like to take away from that is that there's an importance to retain and plant trees wherever possible, and even have them overhang impervious surface. So that will help in the reduction of runoff and pollution loads. The second key finding I wanted to share was related to tree cover over impervious surfaces. And this seems pretty logical, but it does result in decreased runoff volumes. So here is the takeaway, is that we encourage to retain and plant trees to overhang impervious surfaces for high runoff and reduction and pollution reduction benefits. The third key finding is around the development activity. And as you can see here, it says that, that if development does include tree retention, there is a reduction of runoff volume when it's compared with development that doesn't retain trees that are on the sites. So that just emphasizes the importance of retaining existing trees during new development for the higher benefits of runoff and pollution reduction in stormwater. The fourth key finding, and don't get too caught up with the data graphic there, that's from the technical report, but basically the finding is that areas with higher existing tree canopy coverage, they do experience lower magnitude of runoff volume. So when the tree canopy is reduced, so it just means that there is still some great value in a tree canopy cover, whether you have it in a high volume and reduce it, there's still great value, but the importance is that you do retain and if possible, expand that cover to, you know, and maximize the benefit. And then the fifth key finding is around just the use of these two models. And there is this finding that in nearly all the modeled scenarios, excuse me, is that shows that the iTree Hydro overall yielded lower runoff volume outputs than the Western Washington hydrology model. So meaning that it's to use it alone, it may understate the contribution of our tree canopy in the area toward reducing stormwater runoff and pollution. One thing we did want to point out too is that when you're using these models, the two models, we do have a recommendation because of the analysis and comparison that because of that prior statement or the finding, it's best to use the iTree Hydro on a landscape scale, so more on the drainage basin or citywide, and that allows you to explore different hydrology scenarios and responses based on any sort of change in the land cover. So that's one of the takeaways that we want to share, is that it's the iTree Hydro is best on the landscape scale. While we looked at the well-used model, and that does prove to be recommended or be better when you use it at a site scale. So on an individual parcel or even in a neighborhood or subdivision level. So we thought that that was important to share that as well. So it helps people know which model to use to get the most accurate quantification of stormwater mitigation. As far as other considerations that came out of this study and a compilation of it in the technical report, we see that when we know that we're being, faced with a continued growth and development pressures, and it's making opportunities for green stormwater infrastructure to be even more of a challenge. So these are like the big things, is if you could do anything, maintain existing trees and expand the canopy by planting new trees. And then designing and maintaining for all the co-benefits or the layered benefits, and include not only trees, but vegetation layers. And that's really mirroring an ecosystem model approach to design. And then just somehow make sure you plan, design, and develop these infrastructure solutions that integrate trees wherever possible. So that concludes the second session or section. Do we have any questions? I see a couple Q&As.
Oh, yes, we had a question I believe you touched on, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit. The question is, what was the selection criteria for the city studied?
Yes. So we knew we wanted to, this was a tri-county, tri-district area study. So we basically wanted to work with at least one city from Pierce, King, and Snohomish County to bring in those partners into our study and discussion. So that is what we did, is we reached out to cities to see who would have interest in their stormwater division, as well as, if anything, hopefully they would have an urban forestry component. But what we did provide was, if they didn't have, well, we actually conducted a tree canopy mapping for all of those communities. And so that's, since it was with the King Conservation District, we were able to pull in both Kirkland and Kent for our study. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, great. Thank you, Elizabeth. And then another question is, do you see this report providing guidance for integration between communities?
Hopefully, yes. It's like, we see this as a really good way to start the conversation, which we'll go into in the next section. And this also kind of leads me to the development of the toolkit, which we're doing right now, that will even take it another step further. So it's kind of like this whole project is evolving from the study to providing some really good resources and topics in order to start this conversation, both within a city as well as across the region. And then the toolkit, the web-based toolkit's even going to take it a step further. So maybe we'll even ask, be able to respond to that a little bit more with that.
Great, thank you. And then another person had the question, they said GSI question mark. So
yes.
They're probably wondering how GSI is integrated.
Yeah, so GSI is Green Stormwater Infrastructure. So that is a component of, that is the new or progressive way of incorporating things such as rain gardens, bioswales. And so we're adding this other component or consideration is to add trees and tree canopy into these infrastructure solutions. In the handbook, it provides, there's one page that provides definitions of these terms, including GSI, and how they relate to this whole conversation. So GSI, tree canopy, and the like. So there is a page in the handbook on that. Hopefully that answers that.
Great, thank you. And Brandy Reed with Whatcom CD, she wanted to say that one key message here is that big trees mitigate stormwater runoff better than replacement trees, which typically are significantly smaller. So that
is so true. Thank you, Brandy. Yes, it's really important to have tree retention be your first line of offense, so to speak, because they do provide way more value and benefit than planting several trees just to compensate for the, a single tree, mature tree loss. So thank you. Yes, that is the ultimate. If you could take away anything, I hope that is that, because we desperately need to save our mature trees for that exponential benefit.
Yes, and she also pointed out that scenarios with higher beginning canopy cover are able to mitigate stormwater runoff much better when canopy cover is reduced than when compared to scenarios with a lower beginning canopy cover. So yeah, canopy cover is very important.
Yeah, existing canopy cover is very important. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll let you go on to the next part.
All right, so in section 3, it's really all about what it's entitled Conversations to Collaborations. So this is where we talk about this opportunity to collaborate, both internally within jurisdictions, as well as across a community with stakeholders. So this section talks about having those conversations to get toward collaboration. And so it offers some collaborative themes, such as this graphic here, that could lead to some conversations to start on those levels. What we're also finding is that community priorities are becoming more and more prominent in driving how jurisdictions and cities take on different initiatives. So that's also an avenue and opportunity. And this idea that to encourage the idea of co-designing for the stack benefits, or all the co-benefits. So if we could provide more information to show that a design that includes trees or tree canopy, hopefully existing tree canopy, that it only serves more to all the benefits that we saw in the first section. And then there's a section, or a part of this particular section, that talks about some case studies that we're going to be showing, and then connecting to some local examples. So the first of those case studies is one that in the handbook, it's the Inglewood, California Lenox Community Greening Plan. And basically that's a collaboration among policymakers, stakeholders, and community groups to identify criteria for a range of greening strategies in underserved communities. And so this is all about really looking at your community and seeing how well you can serve it through tree canopy and tree planting and retention opportunities. So the local success story for this would be the Tacoma's Community Tree Map project, where they are actually working with the side of the jurisdiction to talk about how they can serve and where are their most underserved communities, and then overlaying the tree map tree layer to see where there's some opportunities for serving those underserved communities. And so we're really excited to actually going to be featuring this in our toolkit, which I'll tell you a little bit more about. But this is a wonderful local example that could easily be replicated, or at least adopted in other communities. The second case study is with Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which actually had a couple project examples. And but I pulled out the tree filter project, which actually is quite a very complex but exciting way where they worked on a redesign of a street that combined what it did was it combined sewer separation. It separated sewer from stormwater, and it included a numerous number of tree filters and an advanced stormwater management design. And it's pretty intricate and amazing, the level of detail and design that they provide in that case study. As far as a local success story, we like to point to Renton's Stormwater Green Connections project, which we are going to be featuring in our field trip next month on May 19th, where they do that as far as treatment along a right-of-way to incorporate that green stormwater infrastructure, which also includes trees. So it's pretty exciting to have that. They're just finishing that project, and so we can see it in the early stages. And so we're excited to feature that in a field trip. And then the third case study in the handbook is for a city in Kansas, where they call it Rain to Recreation Program, where they actually design and do a watershed scale collaboration to reduce flooding, restore habitat, and provide recreational opportunities. And so our local success story is with the city of Arlington, where they actually constructed a wetland to treat their stormwater, as well as some of their reclaimed water. And it's turned out to be a jewel for the city itself that provides incredible habitat and opportunity for people to view wildlife, birding, as well as educational components within it. So we're excited to feature that in May 26th as part of our field trips next month. So I see some other questions or comments. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, so one of the first questions, Elizabeth, is there a tree type, deciduous versus conifer, important for stormwater benefit? So, yeah.
No, that's a great question. Well, in our area, we believe that conifers are the better tree for our stormwater mitigation, because our storm events occur in the winter time. And therefore, when you look at the power of evergreens, they still have their canopy to do the work as far as stormwater mitigation and reduction of runoff. And so that's what we were thinking is the case, and we still believe that to be so, because that was, part of the reason why we decided to do the study, is because most of the other studies regarding stormwater were in other parts of the country in which the storm events are during the times when the deciduous trees have their leaves. So we wanted to make sure that we were quantifying accurately our stormwater capacity of our urban forests. So conifers would be the more desirable. However, they do bring some challenges for folks because of their shading and their size too, because most of our conifers are larger size. So these are challenges and things that we hope that jurisdictions will still have conversations around to figure out how to retain or incorporate trees into their green stormwater infrastructure designs.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And then Brandy was able to support with answering one of the questions that Michael had, but I just wanted to repeat it out loud and see if you had anything else to add. Michael's question is, what is the scale of landscape/projects where the two models are more appropriate, about how many acres? And then I just wanted to read Brandy's response. So Brandy said, the study recommends to use both tools, so the iTree Hydro and the WWHM, to paint a complete picture, a complete stormwater picture. So iTree appears to work better at a larger scale than WWHM, and WWHM appears to work better at the site scale. The precise acreage level where the curves cross is unclear at this time, so more study needed to answer that completely, but I just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything else to add.
No, that's and Brandy's she's the one that knows all that. She was very intimate in leading that project. So I would also encourage folks, if they're looking for those kinds of conversations around, that detail, to read the technical report as well, because that does take into account this specific scenarios, variables within it. So
great. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandy. I appreciate that.
All right. Another question for you, Elizabeth. Carol said, were interlocal agreements required for these projects? Did these projects require coordination with private property owners or strictly on the public right of way?
Actually, Brandy could answer those questions. Are we talking about the study that we did? I'm assuming that's the question.
I believe so. Yeah, they stated project. So yeah, just was it like an interlocal agreement and or coordination with private property owners?
It was it was not. Well, actually, Brandy could answer that question. Brandy, can you answer that question? I'm sure we did have interlocal agreements with each of the pilot communities. And I think we just coordinated where we could find, we had the cities help us locate proper sites that would fit the various scales. And since it's utilizing tree canopy mapping, we did not necessarily needed to enter onto any private properties. Perhaps after me saying that, does Brandy have anything to add via chat?
Sorry, Elizabeth, I was just chatting Brandy that I'm going to promote her to a panelist.
Oh, good.
Hi there, this is Brandy from Whatcom Conservation District, formerly of King City. And I just would add that the Puget Sound Conservation Districts have an interlocal agreement, which allows us to share resources and work together. There were 3 CDs involved in this project, King, Snohomish, and Pierce. All of the jurisdictions are members of their respective CDs. So the city of Snohomish is a member of the Snohomish Conservation District. Kirkland and Kent are members of the King CD, and Tacoma is a member of the within the boundary of the Pierce CD. So all of those relationships were in place so that the parties could work together and bring their respective resources to bear on the project. And then I lost track of the nuance about the private property question, so I can try to address that if somebody could repeat that part of the question.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down to it now. Yeah, so just about the interlocal agreements required for these projects, and then did the projects require coordination with private property owners?
Oh, yeah, so I think Elizabeth addressed that part of it.
Right.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Andy.
And then last question, they say, you mentioned working with others. How is this conversation taking place in Snohomish County with developers, i.e. MBA?
Okay, so yeah, there's within the handbook, there is this promotion and encouragement to work with as many of your community stakeholders as possible. What as far as community stakeholders, that would be your builders and developers, private property owners, and it's important to include them in these discussions before you even go into design and certainly before implementation. That's often the challenging part, is to bring them in and to bring them up to date as to what is possible, and to have them understand that this is in an effort to capitalize on the benefits of trees and tree canopy. And it's always a challenge when you're talking with developers and like the MBA, which is the Master Builders Association, that that they understand that they are a part of the solution and can do that on helping and integrating and cooperating as far as tree canopy retention, if not replanting. So it's a conversation. What we wanted to do, particularly with the toolkit that is coming out, the handbook starts that conversation, and we hope that the toolkit that we're developing right now would give more and more tools and resources in order to have those conversations be well supported and actually be successful. It's always a challenge, though, when you're talking with folks that are helping develop our area for the growth pressures, and may not always see the benefit of retaining trees and our green spaces.
Thank you so much. That was all for questions we have right now.
Okay. So let me take us to that our phase 2, which is this toolkit that I'm talking about. And basically it started from being a trees and stormwater toolkit, like the first 2 outputs of the technical report and the handbook, to actually really expanding it to talk about a wide variety of priorities. So as we were saying, the Snohomish Conservation District is leading this development of a web-based toolkit of resources for jurisdictions to do this collaboration and to integrate tree-based solutions and urban forest-based solutions to respond to these priorities that are coming up. We're having great conversations with cities, counties, tribes, even offering asking for some input with even military bases. So the idea of jurisdictions is broad, and we wanted to see what is really on their radar for us to figure out what would be the best resources to collect and feature in this toolkit. Within that, we will have the technical report and handbook incorporated and being available. And then we are kind of charged with looking at that equity issue and how working with tree canopy and tree related efforts, how well that can address equity within a community. We do see that climate response is important, so providing resources for that. And then as the handbook has some stories and case studies that are more national or in other areas, we do want to bring in those local success stories, like what we are going to be featuring in our field trips next month. And then other regional resources that would be helpful for folks to not only see what is being done on the ground within their neighboring jurisdictions, but an ability for them to connect and communicate with them. So I just wanted to share this graphic that we put together. And it's pretty much guiding how we are developing the toolkit itself. And as I said, the stormwater was the impetus. That was the reasons why we're here. And then but all these other priorities are popping up and cropping up within our jurisdiction's conversations. And so we feel like, wow, maybe we can put together a toolkit that can help them address all these priorities in some form or fashion as it relates to trees. And so as you can see on the far left of the graphic, there we do have the handbook, and we see that as a resource for someone that serves as an advocate for this incorporation of the urban forest into jurisdiction's priorities, and to help make sure that these below ground that create fertile soil, that these steps are taken. And so it's important to have that advocate identified and really has the influence to make this really happen. So just wanted to share that the below ground is just identifying like the buckets of the different types of tools that we're collecting, and a few examples of what we have already collected that would be in these particular categories, just to give you an idea of what we're collecting. But it's amazing how many resources we're already, tools and resources that we are already collecting and being able to bring forward that will touch on at least one, if not several of these priorities that will help with jurisdictions having that collaborative conversation and design work and connecting with the community for success. So with that, that particular phase, again, it's the same partners that we've had all along. And now with Snohomish Conservation District being the lead for this and carrying it through from King CD, we are really excited to move this forward. And we're looking to launch this toolkit in the fall, like October, November at the latest. And we'll be happy to have another webinar to cover that for you. And I think that's it.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. That was really great and really nice to just like get a deep dive into the handbook and cover some of those things that folks are maybe going to have questions about.
Great.
Also, just want to do a last call for any questions. See some great partner names on here and some good potential future partners. Just to let you all know, with the follow-up email, we will be including the link to this recorded webinar. So if your internet just happened to come down and missed a part of it, and or you had to step away or want to send it to someone else you think might find it interesting, we'll be sending that out.
And then we will also be sending out the details of the field trip for anyone who's interested in going to the field trips in May. And then we also have the handbooks to send out, hard copies, and those are all provided by the Department of Natural Resources.
The Urban and Community Forestry Program of the Department of Natural Resources. It's really important to make sure people know that that actually exists in DNR.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions about how we'll be sending the handbook. So we will send physical copies if you included your address when you're registering for this presentation. If you would prefer a PDF copy, we also have those available as well. So maybe we can also just include that PDF link or file in the follow-up email as well. But yes, so we're trying to get those handbooks sent out, mailed out, the physical copies within the next couple weeks. And then, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna, oh, perfect. Thank you, Brandy. She has included that PDF already in the chat, so I really appreciate that support. Yeah, and then feel free to, yes, contact Tara if you have any extra questions or just want to include your address to make sure you get that physical copy as well.
Yes, and thank you so much to Elizabeth and to Brandy for being a part of this today.
Yes, thank you, Brandy.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
And also thank you to all of you for participating. We appreciate your support.
All right.
All right, well, it looks like we don't have any other questions. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to end it and it should just be done. You all have a good day.
Hey.